Today's lesson, we're going to talk about circles and circumferences. Before we get into the formulas for circumference, I want to go over the parts of a circle. Basically, a circle is a set of points on a plane that are all the same distance from the center part of our circle. The outside or perimeter of the circle is called a circumference. The circumference is the distance around the circle and is represented by the blue line outlining our circle. The red line on our circle is the radius. The radius is the measurement from the distance measurement from the center of a circle to any point on the circumference. The diameter is another measurement of the circle. It goes from one point on the circumference through the center to another point on the circumference. And if you notice, the green diameter is equal to two radiuses that are put together. Pi is associated with circles. Pi is basically the ratio between a circle's circumference and its diameter, and written as a fraction, circumference divided by diameter. Normally, we see pi as a whole number with a decimal, 3.14. You can also see it as a fraction as 22/7. There are a number of formulas that you need to memorize when you're working with circles. The first two have to deal with radius and diameter. So basically, the diameter of a circle is equal to 2 times the radius. So you can find your diameter measurement by multiplying the radius by 2. Or if you're given the diameter, you can find the radius by dividing the diameter in half. The next equation that you're going to learn today has to do with finding circumference. Again, circumference is distance around the circle. Since there is a relationship between diameter and radius, you can have two different equations for circumference. One uses diameter, the other uses radius. So the equation for circumference, it's pi times diameter, or pi times twice the radius. So your equations are on the screen below. So we're going to work through a problem together, and then I'm going to show you 3 other circles, and you're going to work to solve the circumference of each of them. So we have our circle with a radius of 6. The very first thing that I recommend you do is write down your equation. Since we are given the radius, I'm going to pick the equation that uses radius. So circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to plug in your values. You know that your radius is 6, so you're going to plug in 6 for r. So your equation now becomes circumference equals 2 times pi times 6. Well, now you're going to combine like terms. I can combine the 2 and the 6 because this whole equation uses multiplication. I know 2 times 6 is 12, so circumference equals 12 times pi, or 37 68/1000 of an inch. Circumference, since it's a distance around the outside of our shape, our units are plane units. So now here's a circle that I want you to try and solve the circumference for. What I want you to do is pause the video. Before you pause it, think about what equation you're going to use. Write your equation down, plug in your values for radius, simplify your equation, and then finally solve. So pause the video now, grab a piece of paper, and come back when you're finished. Welcome back. So since we're given the radius for our circle, the equation we should be using is circumference equals 2 times pi times radius. When you plug in 3.5 for radius, you can simplify your equation to circumference equals 7 times pi. And when you plug in 3.14 for pi, your final answer is 21 98/100 of a centimeter. Our last two examples show the diameter of a circle. So the equation you should be using instead is circumference equals pi times diameter. So I want you to pause the video, okay? Figure out what your figure values for your equation, and solve your equation. When you finish both answers, come back to the video and I'll show you what the solutions are. Welcome back. So for circle 4, our diameter is 20 feet. So you're going to plug in 20 for D, and our equation is 20 times pi. When you simplify 20 times pi, you get 62 and 8/10 of a foot. For the fifth problem, our diameter is 14. So you plug 14 in for D, and you get 14 pi. When you simplify or solve for circumference, your final answer is 43 and 96 millimeters. So we've looked at solving for circumference using both radius and using diameter. You've looked at both equations, and you've also looked at the equations for finding diameter and finding radius. If you have any questions, come back to the video and review it, or post a question in Classroom, and I'll answer it as soon as I can. Now go over to your assignment for today and let me know if you have any problems.